Welcome to lesson 19 of your journey of life, which is all about crime and your behaviour. Now, often when we talk about crime and deviance. So let's start by seeing if you can come up with a definition for crime and a definition for deviance. Crime refers to an act that is criminal or against the law. Deviance, however, makes a reference to how most of society would view the behaviour as not being acceptable. Often, criminal acts are also considered deviant, but not always. So can you think of any acts that are against the law, but that most would not view as deviant? Okay, here are some examples you may have come up with. Driving at 72 miles an hour on the motorway. Illegally downloading music, or illegally streaming a film or a sports event. Whilst these are criminal, the vast majority of society would most likely not consider them to be deviant. Okay, how about the other way round? Can you think of any behaviours that many in society would view as deviant, but that are not actually against the law? Okay, some examples of those might be tax avoidance, cutting in front of somebody in a queue, or adultery. None of these are criminal, but the vast majority of society would agree that they are morally wrong and considered deviant. Now let's see how well you know UK law. Take a look at the list on screen and write them down on your worksheet under the correct heading of either criminal or not criminal. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Those which are criminal. Making silent phone calls. This is actually a form of abuse. Hitchhiking on a motorway. Non-consensual sex within a marriage, as all non-consensual sex is considered rape. Forced marriage. This became illegal in 2014. Singing racial chants at a football match. The Football Offences Act of 1991 makes it an offence to chant about someone's race, ethnicity, or any other protected characteristics. And finally, vagrancy, or the act of being homeless. The Vagrancy Act of 1842 still stands today, and it's illegal in the UK to sleep rough or to beg. Those which are not criminal. Alcoholism, watching pornography, homosexuality, prostitution. The act of engaging in sexual services for money is not actually illegal. However, soliciting or trying to acquire them is illegal. And finally, attempted suicide. The Suicide Act of 1961 means it is no longer illegal to try to take your own life. Before this, however, if you tried and failed, you could be imprisoned. Okay, next let's consider different types of crime. First of all, hate crime. Hate crime is any crime that is perceived by the victim or any other person as being motivated by prejudice of a protected characteristic, such as disability, sexual orientation, race, religious belief, or gender. The maximum sentence that can be handed out for a common assault is 6 months. However, if it can be proved it was motivated by hate, for instance a racially motivated attack, This can increase to almost 2 years. Next, white-collar crime. White-collar crimes are generally not violent acts, and they're usually committed in commercial circumstances for financial gain, such as tax evasion, credit card fraud, or computer or internet fraud. They get their name from the way the offender often looks like a respectable, successful person. They don't always have to include financial crimes. Take the case of Harold Shipman, a seemingly respected doctor in the community who murdered hundreds of his patients. His actions would actually be considered white-collar crime. Next, honour crime. Honour crimes are crimes which have taken place due to an individual or family believing that a person has brought shame to the reputation of that family within a community. They can include acid attacks, mutilations, such as female genital mutilation, abductions, beatings, or even murder, known as honour killings. It's important to note that culture should never be used as an excuse for committing a crime, and all crime, honour-based or otherwise, should be reported to the police. Next, domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is any act of targeted abuse against a partner or family member that happens within the home environment. Domestic abuse refers to physical violence, such as torture, assault, or murder, verbal abuse, such as constantly degrading or belittling someone, or financial abuse, such as not allowing a partner access to money. For instance, if you make your partner completely financially dependent upon you, this could in fact be a form of domestic abuse. In recent years, domestic abuse has changed in definition to also cover emotional abuse, such as coercive and controlling behaviour. And finally, let's consider state crime. State crimes are actions perpetrated by a state or a country, such as a government committing a crime on their own people. It could include genocide, war crimes, imprisonment without trial, or torture. There have been several examples of state crimes throughout history, unfortunately, some very recently. Some examples include the Holocaust, the Rwanda genocide, and the Rohingya genocide. Now that we've considered different types of crime, let's take a look at what level of crime there is in the UK. So your next task is to consider the crime statistics in your area. Head over to police.uk and look at the crime in your area by typing in your postcode, and find out what are the top reported crimes and make a note on your worksheet. While the police recorded crimes, like the ones you've just investigated, are a good indicator of crime rates in the UK, they don't cover all crime. There are also unreported crimes, plus all the crimes that are reported but the police don't record, and this is what is known as the dark figure of crime. One way to think of this is like an iceberg. What you see above the water are all of the crimes which are recorded in the official crime statistics, but much more crime that is not reported sits below the surface. This includes crimes that the police are not aware of and crimes that nobody is witness to. It's interesting to note that because the dark figure of crime is considered to be so large, the Office for National Statistics decided in 2014 that police recorded crime statistics do not meet the required standard for official statistics in the UK and should only be considered a guide. So in order to solve the issue, every year a survey is done, which is known as the Crime Survey for England and Wales. And this is a victim survey that asks a sample of the population in England and Wales about their experiences of crime. An important part of this survey is that it records crimes that do not get reported to the police. This, potentially, makes the survey a more accurate measure than the police recorded statistics, as this survey will include more of the dark figure of crime. It is estimated that only 1 in 4 rapes are reported to the police. However, there is more chance that they will be recorded in the crime survey. A summary of the crime survey for England and Wales can be found on the Office for National Statistics website. So your task now is to go and find last year's summary and see how this compares with the top reported crimes you found for your area earlier on. Finally, let's consider reporting crimes. There are many reasons crimes go unreported, such as fear of retaliation or reprisal, shame, or even guilt. There is, however, another reason crimes may go unreported, and that is, unfortunately, down to a lack of knowledge about how to report it. So your final task now is to investigate ways of reporting specific crimes. Think of the crimes that we've considered so far during this lesson and search if there are any charities or websites which make reporting of that crime easy. A good example would be Tell Mama for reporting anti-Muslim attacks. I'll see you in the next lesson, where we'll be looking at employment rights and responsibilities.